Depression. Depression is a mental condition that strips away life's vibrancy. It impacts how your brain creates and utilizes chemicals like serotonin and dopamine, the messengers that enable you to experience pleasure, drive, and relationships. When these systems break down, everything becomes more difficult. You awaken feeling drained, even after sleeping for 10 hours. Food has no flavor. Activities that once brought you joy now seem meaningless. Your brain convinces you that things will never improve, and you accept it because depression doesn't feel like being sad. It feels like being hollow. Sadness has an explanation, a narrative, a trigger. Depression simply exists, heavy and persistent, even when your life appears fine from an outside perspective. People suggest just be positive or take a walk, but depression isn't a negative mindset you can simply shake off. It's your brain physically unable to produce the chemicals that make feeling better possible. Thinking becomes slower, choices become paralyzing, and rising from bed can feel like scaling a cliff. You might sleep through entire days or stay awake throughout the night. You distance yourself from friends, not by choice, but because faking normalcy requires energy you lack. Over time, untreated depression transforms how you perceive yourself and your surroundings. It persuades you that this emptiness is your true self, that happiness was always fleeting, that optimism is just a deception people maintain. The disorder doesn't make a loud entrance. It murmurs quietly until you can't recall what feeling alive used to be like. Generalized anxiety disorder. Generalized anxiety disorder transforms regular concerns into a perpetual alarm system that refuses to deactivate. Your brain responds to ordinary situations as if they're crises, pumping your body full of stress hormones even when there's no genuine threat. Everyone experiences worry occasionally about exams or finances or relationships. But anxiety disorder makes you anxious about everything constantly, even situations that haven't occurred yet and likely never will. You stay awake constructing disasters in your mind. You revisit conversations, certain you said something inappropriate. Your thoughts leap from one worry to another, constructing worst-case scenarios from thin air. Physically, your body remains tight. Your shoulders throb, your stomach aches, and your heart pounds without any apparent cause. You feel drained because your nervous system believes it's defending you from dangers that aren't there. Basic choices become overwhelming because every option feels like it might result in disaster. Should you send that message? What if they interpret it wrong? What if they become upset? The disorder robs you of your capacity to unwind because your brain has lost the ability to distinguish between real danger and fabricated problems. People advise you to relax, to quit overthinking, but that's like instructing someone with a fractured leg to simply walk properly. Over time, the persistent tension exhausts you. You begin dodging situations that spark worry, which only makes your world feel more confined and more dangerous. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a condition where your brain has difficulty controlling focus, impulses, and energy levels. The section of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, which manages planning and self-discipline, matures more slowly or functions differently. This means you desire to concentrate, you desire to remain still, you desire to complete tasks, but your brain refuses to cooperate. People assume ADHD means you can't concentrate on anything, but that's incorrect. You can hyperfocus on things that captivate you for hours, completely losing awareness of time. The issue is you can't select what captures your attention. Uninteresting tasks feel physically agonizing to begin. Your thoughts drift during conversations, even when you value the person speaking. You miss appointments, misplace your keys, and abandon projects incomplete. Not because you're unmotivated, but because your brain doesn't generate sufficient dopamine to make completion feel satisfying. Impulsivity causes you to interrupt others, purchase things spontaneously, or speak words you immediately wish you hadn't. You might fidget nonstop, bounce your leg, or feel uncomfortable in your own body. Time feels elusive. You miscalculate how long things require, then stress when deadlines suddenly materialize. At school or work, you're labeled irresponsible, lazy, or scatterbrained. But internally, you're working harder than anyone recognizes. The draining part is understanding what you must do while observing yourself unable to do it regardless. ADHD creates a distance between wanting and doing that determination alone can't close. Obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder imprisons your mind in a cycle of invasive thoughts and frantic rituals. Your brain fixates on a worry, an image, or a horrifying what-if situation and refuses to release it. These are called obsessions, unwelcome thoughts that infiltrate your mind even when you attempt to dismiss them. Perhaps you're petrified of germs transmitting illness, or persuaded you left the oven on and your house will catch fire, or plagued by aggressive images that disgust you. The thoughts seem so authentic, so pressing that your brain insists you take action to stop them. That's where compulsions enter. You scrub your hands until they split and bleed. You verify the door locks 15 times before departing. You count, tap, organize objects in flawless order, or silently repeat phrases. These rituals seem like the only method to avoid catastrophe, but the comfort lasts moments before the anxiety resurges and insists you do it again. OCD deceives you that your thoughts hold power, that thinking something harmful increases its likelihood of occurring unless you execute the correct action. People joke about being so OCD when they prefer things tidy. But genuine OCD is agony. You recognize the rituals are illogical. You understand checking the oven 10 times makes zero logical sense. But the terror is so crushing that you cannot restrain yourself. Hours vanish into compulsions. Your hands ache. Your mind depletes itself, and the disorder strengthens its hold. OCD doesn't make you cautious or organized. It makes you a captive to thoughts you never desired initially. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder occurs when your brain remains locked in survival mode after enduring something horrifying. A vehicle accident, violence, abuse, combat, or any incident where you felt your life was threatened can reprogram how your brain handles fear and security. Typically, after something frightening concludes, your nervous system settles down and stores the memory away. With PTSD, that system malfunctions. Your brain continues replaying the trauma as though it's occurring right now. Flashbacks aren't like typical memories where you visualize the past. They're intense physical re-experiences. A scent, a noise, or a random image can transport you back immediately. Your heart races, your breathing accelerates, and for those seconds or minutes, you truly believe you're endangered again. Nightmares infiltrate your sleep, shocking you awake in panic. You become hypervigilant, perpetually searching for threats, incapable of relaxing, even in secure environments. Loud sounds make you flinch. Crowds feel overwhelming. You evade anything that recalls the trauma, which occasionally means evading entire aspects of your life. Emotions become erratic. Fury explodes over minor things. You feel detached and numb, even from people you cherish. Focus vanishes because your brain is too occupied monitoring for danger to concentrate on anything else. PTSD makes you feel damaged, like the trauma took who you once were. Your brain is attempting to shield you, but the warning system won't deactivate. You're existing in the aftermath, while your mind keeps pulling you back to the most terrible moment. Bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder sends your brain oscillating between extreme emotional states that you cannot regulate. There are two extremes, mania and depression, and you alternate between them in cycles that can persist for days, weeks, or months. During a manic phase, your brain surges with energy and self-assurance that seems almost superhuman. You sleep 2 hours and awaken vibrating with concepts. You speak rapidly, bounce between ideas, and feel like you can achieve anything. Dangerous choices suddenly appear brilliant. You might waste money you lack, initiate 5 projects simultaneously, or think you've uncovered something revolutionary. Colors appear more vivid, connections seem meaningful, and remaining motionless becomes impossible. But mania blazes too intensely. Your ideas race faster than you can track them. Frustration escalates when people can't match your pace. Sometimes the energy shifts into suspicion or false beliefs where reality becomes unclear. Then the plunge arrives. The manic peak collapses into depressive valleys where all that energy disappears entirely. You can scarcely leave bed. Everything that seemed achievable now seems futile. The difference makes the depression even weightier because you recall what possessing energy felt like. Bipolar disorder drains you with its inconsistency. You never know which form of yourself will emerge tomorrow. Relationships struggle because people can't adapt to the changes. Plans crumble during depressive phases. Repercussions from manic choices haunt you afterward. This isn't experiencing mood fluctuations or altering your perspective. Your brain chemistry oscillates between extremes without requesting consent, and you're simply attempting to endure through the journey. Panic disorder. Panic disorder makes your body trigger a false warning that feels like death. Your brain's fear hub, the amygdala, malfunctions and activates a complete survival reaction, even though there's no real threat. A panic attack strikes abruptly, often without notice. Your heart begins racing so intensely you're certain it will burst. Your chest constricts, making it feel impossible to get air. Sweat streams down your spine. Your hands go numb, and vertigo makes everything rotate. You're convinced something disastrous is occurring. Heart attack, stroke, losing control, dying. Every physical sensation amplifies the panic, generating a feedback cycle where fear intensifies symptoms and symptoms intensify fear. The attack climaxes within 10 minutes, then gradually subsides, leaving you exhausted and disturbed. But the genuine trap isn't the attack itself. After your initial one, you cultivate a fresh fear, the fear of experiencing another panic attack. You begin avoiding locations where you panicked previously, grocery stores, freeways, packed spaces. You stress constantly about when the next attack will happen, which paradoxically makes attacks more probable because anxiety prepares your body for panic. Your existence contracts as you remove situations where fleeing feels challenging. Some individuals stop departing their house completely. Panic disorder persuades you that your body is threatening and undependable. You're not frightened of the world anymore. You're frightened of yourself, of what your own nervous system might execute without authorization. The disorder doesn't just steal instances, it steals your feeling of security in your own body. Social anxiety disorder. Social anxiety disorder converts everyday interactions into performances where you're persuaded you'll fail. Your brain regards social situations as dangers, saturating your body with fear, reactions designed for genuine danger. Entering a room full of people feels like stepping onto a platform where everyone is observing, evaluating, anticipating you to stumble. Before you even talk, your mind saturates with worst-case situations. What if you say something foolish? What if they believe you're uninteresting? What if your voice trembles or your face flushes? The fear becomes so powerful that your body responds physically. Your heart pounds, your hands shake, sweat saturates through your clothing, and your voice emerges wrong, too soft or too unsteady. You're so concentrated on observing yourself that you can't think properly, which makes you trip over words, lose what you were expressing, or go totally blank. After the interaction finishes, your brain replays every instant, amplifying small errors into catastrophes. You persuade yourself that everyone observed, that they're discussing how uncomfortable you were, that you've destroyed their perception of you permanently. This isn't timidity or being introverted. Timid people might feel anxious, but can persevere. Social anxiety commandeers your complete system, making fleeing feel like the sole choice. You begin avoiding gatherings, presentations, phone conversations, even essential discussions. Possibilities vanish because the terror of criticism surpasses everything else. The disorder separates you while persuading you that separation is safer than risking embarrassment. You're not unfriendly. You're petrified of being observed. Eating disorders. Eating disorders commandeer your relationship with food and distort it into a technique of control. Anorexia limits eating to hazardous levels, driven by an extreme terror of gaining weight and a warped perception of your own body. You glance in the mirror and perceive someone overweight, even when you're dangerously underweight. Every calorie becomes an adversary. Eating seems like defeat, and hunger seems like victory. Your brain persuades you that managing food is the one thing you can handle when everything else feels disordered. Bulimia generates a different pattern. You consume large quantities in private, feeling uncontrolled, then eliminate through vomiting or extreme exercise to reverse it. The guilt is crushing, but the cycle continues because the disorder guarantees relief that never genuinely arrives. Both conditions demolish your body gradually. Your heart deteriorates, your bones become fragile, your hair sheds, and your organs battle to operate. But the physical harm conceals behind the mental snare. Eating disorders aren't genuinely about food or weight. They're about control, perfectionism, and attempting to diminish yourself when the world seems too overwhelming. The disorder communicates in your own thoughts, camouflaging itself as reasoning and determination. It informs you that eating is frailty, that slimness equals value, that you're never slim enough. Friends and family implore you to eat, but you can't simply begin because the disorder has persuaded you that releasing control means losing yourself. Recovery seems like surrendering the only thing shielding you, even though that shield is destroying you. Borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder makes your emotions feel like a tempest you can't flee. Your brain battles to control feelings, so emotions that others encounter as ripples strike you like tidal waves. Something minor, a canceled plan, or an ignored text can send you plummeting into hopelessness or fury within seconds. You experience everything at peak intensity with virtually no neutral ground. Relationships become conflicts because you're petrified of abandonment. You grasp desperately to people, then repel them away when the terror of losing them becomes intolerable. One instant, someone is flawless, the next they're awful, and you can't maintain both realities simultaneously. This all-or-nothing thinking extends to yourself too. You're either valueless or exceptional, never simply human. Your feeling of identity changes constantly. You reflect whoever you're with because you're uncertain who you genuinely are beneath. Impulsivity appears without notice. You might abandon jobs abruptly, spend carelessly, drive recklessly, or erupt verbally just to discharge the tension accumulating inside. Self-harm occasionally becomes a method to feel something tangible when emotions become too unclear and overpowering. People label you theatrical, controlling, or volatile, but inside you're suffocating. Every interaction seems life or death because your emotional system lacks the cushion that assists others remain steady. You're not attempting to generate disorder. Your brain genuinely encounters normal situations as emergencies. The exhaustion derives from existing in perpetual emotional crisis mode, while everyone surrounding you questions why you can't simply settle down. You desire stability desperately, but your own mind keeps removing the foundation from beneath you. Schizophrenia. Schizophrenia shatters how your brain interprets reality. Neurotransmitters like dopamine malfunction, causing your mind to generate experiences that aren't genuinely occurring, while battling to arrange thoughts that are authentic. The disorder has two categories of symptoms. Positive symptoms introduce things that shouldn't exist. Hallucinations make you perceive voices remarking on your behaviors, condemning you, or issuing orders. You might observe people who aren't there, or sense sensations on your skin that have no origin. Delusions persuade you of incorrect beliefs that seem completely genuine. You might believe the government is monitoring you, that strangers are scheming against you, or that you possess extraordinary abilities. These aren't selections or fantasy. Your brain genuinely recognizes them as authentic. Negative symptoms remove things that should exist. Emotions flatten until you can't experience happiness or display feelings naturally. Drive vanishes, making fundamental tasks like bathing or eating seem impossible. Speech becomes scattered, leaping between disconnected topics, or you might cease talking altogether because constructing coherent sentences demands energy you lack. Films portray schizophrenia as aggressive and threatening, but most people with this disorder are more probable to be victims than dangers. The genuine threat is internal, the bewilderment and horror of not understanding what's authentic. You can't rely on your own awareness. Voices might communicate terrible things about yourself. Suspicion makes everyone seem like a threat. Treatment assists many people in controlling symptoms, but schizophrenia remains one of the most misunderstood and stigmatized conditions, converting a medical disorder into a cultural horror. Dissociative identity disorder. Dissociative identity disorder divides a person's identity into separate segments as a survival reaction to severe childhood trauma. When a child endures abuse so crushing that their mind can't handle it, the brain shields itself by separating. Different identity states, often labeled alters, emerge to contain specific memories, emotions, or functions that the primary consciousness couldn't manage. These aren't fictional friends or pretending. They're separate segments of one person's psyche. Each can possess different ages, genders, memories, and perspectives of seeing the world. Transitioning between alters can occur without notice. You might lose time, discovering yourself in locations with no recollection of how you arrived there. Friends reference conversations you don't recall experiencing. Your handwriting transforms, your preferences change, and suddenly you're expressing opinions or abilities you didn't realize you possessed. Some alters shield by containing rage. Others soothe by remaining youthful. And some hold the traumatic memories, so the primary identity can operate day to day. Films depict this disorder as threatening or mystical, but the reality is far more agonizing. You're not multiple individuals. You're one person whose mind fractured under stress too extreme for a child to endure. The disorder generates internal turmoil where different segments might clash, collaborate, or stay oblivious of each other. Reconstructing a unified sense of self demands years of therapy. The fragmentation that once shielded you now makes daily existence feel like moving without a guide, never completely certain who's controlling or what memories are concealed just below the surface.